Hey everyone, in today's video, we're going to be learning about how to set up your local dev environment in macOS or Linux in order to get up and running with Airbyte so that you could be building custom connectors in no time. As I mentioned, we're focused on Unix/Linux users in this video, but don't worry, for those of you on Windows, we'll be addressing how to set up your local environment for Windows in a separate video. The first thing we're going to need to install is Python version 3.9.11. That is the minimum required version of Python 3 that you'll need installed locally in order to spin up a local instance of Airbyte. If you're on macOS, Python 2.7 comes pre-installed, but we're going to need to upgrade that. So go ahead and open up a browser, and you're going to head over to python.org. In there, you're going to head over to the downloads page, and then scroll down a little bit until you see the looking for a specific release section. In there, you're going to scroll down a little bit until you find Python 3.9.11. Then you can go ahead and download that, follow the instructions on the prompt, and then you should be good to go. Once you have that installed, you're going to head over and install pip, which is going to be our package manager, but it'll also allow us to spin up virtual environments, which you'll need when you work with Airbyte. So go ahead and open up Google and type in how to install pip. It should be the first link that's in there, which is the pip documentation. You have two methods. You can use ensurepip or getpip. Let's just use the first one. So you're going to copy this command into a terminal. So let's open up our terminal window. And in here, you're just going to paste it in. Make sure that $sign is not in there and go ahead and run it. I'm not going to do it since I already have pip installed. But once you run that command, then you can go ahead and type in pip -- version. And then verify that it is in there and installed. If it spits out a version, you can also do the same for Python. After you install it, it should spit out the same version that you're using. Keep in mind, I am using pyenv in this tutorial, which is a version management tool for Python, which allows me to switch back and forth between different versions I've installed on my machine. So if you are curious, you can head over to the pyenv GitHub repo and take a look at how to install it and how to use it. It's a really nice tool to be able to switch back and forth, especially with Airbyte when we require that 3.9.11 be used. The next package manager tool that we should probably have installed is called Homebrew. Homebrew is just the default go-to package manager that everyone uses when you're on macOS. So let's go ahead and install that. We're gonna head back into our terminal. And the one command we're going to need to run is going to be a bash command. And don't worry, these commands will all be in the description below for you to also just copy and paste. But go ahead and paste this in, run it, and it should install Homebrew. Again, I'm not going to install it since I already have it locally as well. I should preface that by saying, if you do not have Xcode installed, you probably don't even have the Xcode command line tools installed either on your machine. Don't worry, if you run that command, it'll just ask you to install them. Go ahead and say yes, let it run. Then once it's run, you can run that command again, and that way you can install Homebrew. If you don't have Xcode installed, please install Xcode because it is required to get the command line tools in your machine. So once we have Homebrew installed, now we can install Docker. If you didn't know, Airbyte is packaged into 7 different Docker containers. And so we're going to need Docker to be able to spin up all the separate services that Airbyte is run with. So in our terminal, we're going to run brew install -- cask Docker. And what that's going to do is that's going to install Docker as well as Docker desktop. Now for me, I'm using Colima, so I don't have Docker desktop, but it is required to have Docker on your machine. So once you do that and let it all run, you're going to then install Docker Compose. Docker Compose lets you run multiple containers all at once using a single command instead of spinning up every single container individually. So we're also going to do the same thing. We're going to brew install Docker - compose, leaving out the cask part. If you want to install Docker manually instead, you can head over to docker.com, select what OS you are on, and then go off to the races. I'm on an Apple chip, so I'd click here, and then I would just allow it to download and let the downloads run. Once the downloads finishes, make sure you have Docker running before you go run Airbyte. It will throw some errors if Docker isn't currently running on your system. And so with everything installed, all that's left to do is clone the Airbyte repo and run our services. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to cd into my development directory, make a directory called testing, cd into that. I'm going to paste this command, but this is pretty much cloning the Airbyte repo into this directory. So I'm going to go ahead and do that and let it run. This may take a little bit, so let it run. Once that's done, we're going to cd into the Airbyte directory. And all that's left to do is go ahead and run it. So for me, I'm going to do Colima start. And now that's all that's left to do is run Docker - compose up. And what that's going to do is it's going to spin up every single Docker container that is listed in Airbyte. Get our services running. You're going to let it go for a little bit. And keep an eye on the terminal. When you see the Airbyte banner in the terminal, that means that their services are ready to go, and you can go ahead and head into localhost port 8000 and get working on Airbyte using our services locally. And as you can see, the banner is here. So what we can do is copy localhost port 8000, head back into our terminal, and what we're going to do is type in localhost port 8000. And as you can see, Airbyte is up, the UI is spitting, and there you're off to the races. So hopefully that helped you. This is the bare minimum that you need in order to actually get up and running with Airbyte and start building custom connectors. If you want more in-depth instructions on how to contribute to our repo, head over to our docs. There's a plethora of information there. Also, be sure to join our Slack channel as well as our discourse to ask any questions that you have for troubleshooting purposes. But hopefully this helped. Let us know if it did down in the comment section below, and we'll see you on another video. Peace.